Great. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Pei Dongsun, Distinguished Associate Professor of Arts and Science in China and Asian Pacific Studies. I'm delighted to welcome you all to today's lecture by Professor Steve Tsang, a highly respected scholar in the field of contemporary Chinese politics and history. This event is made possible by the NLDU Center for International Studies in the East Asian Program. We sincerely appreciate their support in organizing this important discussion. Additionally, today's lecture is also the fifth in the Unmasking the CCP, History, Politics, and Society in Post-1949 China series. Launched in March 2024, this series is generously supported by the College of Arts and Science Office of the Dean and co-sponsored by the Department of History, the NLD Center, the East Asian Program, the Society for the Humanities, and the Charles Dyson School of Applied Economics and Management. Before we start, I would like to thank our dedicated staff, including Wen Mingxie and Sandy Ling Tong, and as well as our student administrator, Henry Chen, whose hard work has been key to making this event happen. The title of today's lecture is The Political Thought of Xi Jinping. In this talk, Professor Tsang will explore how Xi Jinping's ideology has evolved and why it matters. What are Xi's ambitions for China globally? How has his ideological shift reshaped China's political landscape? What does this transformation mean for China's future and its role in the world? We are honored to host Professor Steve Tsang, Director of the SOAS China Institute, University of London. Before taking on this role in 2016, he led the School of Contemporary Chinese Studies at the University of Nottingham and was a professorial fellow at St. Anthony's College, University of Oxford. Beyond academia, Professor Tsang is a well-known expert, frequently invited to speak on major media outlets like the BBC, Sky News, France 24, and the CNBC. His expertise has also been called upon in expert testimonies before selected committees of the UK Parliament and the Canadian House of Commons. Professor Tsang will speak for 40 to 45 minutes. Then at 3:45, we will start a 30 minutes Q&A section. Both in person and online audience will have the chance to ask Professor Tsang their questions. We are truly privileged to have Professor Tsang with us today. Please join me in welcoming him.
Well, thank you very much, Pei Dong, Professor Sun, for your very, very generous introduction. I do apologize for not being able to join you all in person at the lovely campus in Cornell. I hope you'll forgive me, but I'm delighted to have this opportunity to speak to you at least via a Zoom link. Now, Professor Sun has outlined a perhaps more ambitious plan for what I am going to do in the next 40 minutes than I'm going to be able to deliver in that 40 minutes. But anything she has said that if you're interested in, I'm very happy to engage with in the Q&A sessions. So I will try very hard to keep to about 40 minutes so that we will definitely have about 30 minutes to discuss. What I would like to start off is to discuss what is Xi Jinping thought. And I would say that Xi Jinping thought is both China's state ideology and it isn't. Now, what do I mean? If we take a purely academic definition of a state ideology, then Xi Jinping thought will fall short of it. It does not really quite give a clear and coherent set of worldviews and a system of meaning that explains social phenomenon, which is what we would expect an ideology to do. Xi Jinping falls short of that. But having said that, it is now being effectively hailed as the de facto state ideology in China. It provides a very clear vision for China in the next 25 years, usually sum up in this term as the China dream or the China dream of national rejuvenation. And a lot of what Xi Jinping thought is about unpicking what Xi Jinping thought of as the China dream of national rejuvenation is about. And in terms of the sources of Xi Jinping thought, obviously it comes hugely from Leninism, and I'll come back to the Leninist dimension. And Xi Jinping will say, of course, it is Marxism as well. And indeed, when Xi Jinping refers to it, except in formal occasions when he has to refer to it by its full name as Marxism-Leninism, and sometimes including Mao Zedong thought, Deng Xiaoping theories, and the additional contributions by Jiang Zemin and Hu Jintao, Xi Jinping really is focusing on Leninism in that particular equation. But beyond that Marxist-Leninist part, then there is the Chinese part to it. Unlike Mao Zedong, who believed and claimed that he had ushered in China in 1949 a new China, Xi Jinping is always talking about the past, the grandeur of Chinese civilization, history, and culture. For Xi Jinping, when we talk about the signification of Marxism-Leninism, he is not doing anything like what Mao did, which was to adapt the urban-based, proletarian-oriented Marxism-Leninism of the West into the agrarian context of China, and kind of try to make it work in an agrarian context. When Xi Jinping talked about the, in quotation marks, signification of Marxism-Leninism, he really is talking about making Marxism-Leninism Sinocentric. He is effectively merging Marxism-Leninism with China's tradition and his understanding of Chinese history and his understanding of China's cultural heritage, particularly Confucianism and legalism. But here I have underlined again and again, it is Xi Jinping's understanding of it. If you go back to proper teachings of poor old Confucius, or indeed if you could elevate him from his grave, poor old Confucius probably won't recognize what is being said in his name. But that combining of the two together makes this particularly brand of Chinese state ideology focus very much on China itself. There is a strong China first dimension to this. So what does Xi Jinping thought seek to achieve? Domestically, Xi Jinping thought is about forging one country, one people, one ideology, one party, and one leader. Beyond China, so globally, it is about delivering the China dream of national rejuvenation, which effectively will mean making China great again. Now, here I'm not just making puns about your president and his slogans, however much they kind of can be easily adopted and adapted for the Chinese context under Xi. It is about Xi Jinping's belief that in the best of time in human history, They were the times when China was the richest, most powerful, most innovative, most highly organized, and most civilized country in the world. And it was so much superior to everybody else that others would want to emulate China, admire China, and follow China's leadership. And with that, the world would enjoy Pax Sinica. And this is something which Xi Jinping would quite like to restore when the China dream of national rejuvenation is to be fulfilled by 2049 or 2050. The flexibility of the timing exists because sometimes it refers to 2049, the centenary of the founding, the centenary of the People's Republic of China. Sometimes he just used the more convenient midpoint of the century, 2050. So the easy thing to do is to basically say that probably he meant the end, by the end of 2049. For the next 30 minutes or so, what I would like to do is to go into what I identify as the 7 key dimensions of Xi Jinping thought, or the 7 directions for achieving the China dream of national rejuvenation. First and foremost of that 7 dimensions is to put the party at the center of everything. This doesn't come from me. It came from Xi Jinping. If you would like to, you can easily look up Xi Jinping's speech at the 19th Party Congress in 2017, in which he was pretty clear. Effectively, what he said was, matters not whether it is east, west, north, south, or in the middle. Matters not whether it is party matters, government affairs, military issues, educational, academic, or indeed in any walk of life. The party leads them all. There was no if, there was no but, there was no qualifications. The party leads them all at all times. That's what Xi Jinping openly declared as what really is the most basic thing. And this is, of course, going back to basics in Leninism. It is about revitalizing the Communist Party of China as the effective Leninist instrument of control that can reach all parts in China and perhaps potentially even beyond. And the focus on the party is also encapsulated in his slogan, which is to comprehensively govern the party strictly, and reflected in his first major policy initiative when he became the top leader at the end of 2012. And that was, of course, the well-known anti-corruption campaign, in quotation marks. Why in quotation marks? Because the anti-corruption campaign was amazingly clever. The word campaign implies clearly that there must be a starting point and therefore an ending point. It was relatively easy for the rest of the Communist Party, particularly its top echelon, to accept Xi Jinping's new initiative in 2012, when he became top leader, at a time when the Communist Party faced systemic corruption and it was arguably facing crisis of confidence in the party's discipline and integrity. So everybody kind of thought that Xi Jinping came in, he launched his anti-corruption campaign. See how long it lasts. 3 months, 6 months, a year, 2 on the outside. They got it wrong. Because what Xi Jinping meant to deliver with the anti-corruption campaign was anything but an anti-corruption campaign. It was an anti-corruption drive in name and a party ratification operation in reality, and with the two effectively being two sides of the same coin. There's no end date to it. But with a party ratification campaign in the name of anti-corruption, Xi has the instrument to continuously purify the party and make sure the party follows the leadership and adheres to the discipline imposed by its supreme leader, called the core of the Communist Party. And with that effective control and revitalization of the party as a Leninist instrument, then Xi Jinping has the instrument, the institutional instrument in the country to run the whole country and to take over running of the government administration as well. So it is a very, very important part of it. And by the 20th Party Congress in 2022, Xi Jinping had clearly removed all other factions in the party. Now, post-2022, the Communist Party is all Xi Jinping faction. What, of course, we also know about Chinese politics is that factions is endemic. And now that there is no non-Xi Jinping factions, you will end up with sub-factions emerging within the Communist Party or from within the Xi Jinping faction. And that's where we are today. The second dimension is to merge the Maoist approach to leadership with the Liu Shaoqi approach to party control. Now, this is something really worth taking note of. I noticed in your introductions that not all of you are Chinese history majors. So some of you will not have heard of the name Liu Shaoqi. So let me explain who Liu Shaoqi was. Liu Shaoqi was Mao's number 2 from 1945, the 7th Party Congress, when Mao became absolutely, indisputably the top leader of the Communist Party. That's when Liu Shaoqi became his number 2, until Liu Shaoqi himself was purged in the Cultural Revolution in the second half of the 1960s. What is best known about Liu Shaoqi is his writing and publication of a pamphlet called How to Be a Good Communist, effectively the handbook for Chinese Communist Party membership. Xi Jinping, Liu Shaoqi was the ultimate Leninist in the Chinese Communist Party, particularly in his first generation of leaders. Xi Jinping, of course, now would be the ultimate Leninist, replacing Liu Shaoqi. But merging Liu Shaoqi's approach with the Mao Zedong approach means that Xi Jinping is not attempting a Maoist restoration. The Maoist rule included not only completely disastrous economic policies like the Great Leap Forward, it also included the Cultural Revolution, which effectively meant Mao waging a war against the Communist Party itself and gravely damaged the Communist Party as an instrument of government and governance within China. Xi Jinping is not going to do anything like that. Xi Jinping is going to protect the party and use the party, but on top of that party, he expects and tries to assert himself as the top leader in the way that Mao did. So you have together both a kind of a personality cult of the late Maoist era, the supreme authority of the top leader, together with an effective party instrument for control. And it means the party is taking over the state. It means the party is extending its control into the private sector. It means the party now embodies the collective wisdom of the party, so the party represents the people. And of course, Xi Jinping represents the party. So what Xi Jinping says is what the Chinese people want. They are now effectively all the same thing. When you talk about Chinese national interests, they exist in concentric circles. If you have China's national interests as the outer concentric circle, then inside it, you have the Communist Party of China. And inside that circle of the Communist Party of China, you have the core of the Communist Party, who happens to be Supreme Leader Xi Jinping himself. Now, the third dimension is ideological indoctrination, perhaps something you absolutely would be expecting. And ideological indoctrination means learning Xi Jinping thought. Now, Xi Jinping thought was not unveiled until 2017 at the 19th Party Congress. That was the first time it was being formally introduced. The name was mentioned a bit earlier in that year, but really it was the 19th Party Congress when Xi Jinping thought became something new. And shortly after that, party members were required to learn Xi Jinping thought. And believe it or not, Xi Jinping was very technologically savvy. Instead of following Chairman Mao's approach and publish the quotations of Chairman Xi and require everybody to carry it and recite it, he got somebody to develop a digital app which goes into your mobile phone or any other devices that you have. And with that 学习强国 app, you will be helped to learn Xi Jinping thought on a daily basis. And what is so amazing about Xi Jinping 学习强国 was that if the Chairman Mao's little red book simply require you to learn it by rote and recite some of the quotations at the right moment, 学习强国 is like Father Christmas. Santa Claus knows when you have been naughty and when you have been good, because the apps monitors your use. They know how much you've been learning Xi Jinping thought, and whether you've been good in learning it or you've been naughty in pretending that you were learning it without actually learning it. Now, the app was something that was an imposition to begin with. Then came COVID. And with COVID, apps acquired new functionalities, such as if you would like to have a green pass to travel during lockdown, 学习强国 would offer that function. It wasn't by any means the only way you can get a travel pass, but 学习强国, which you have to have on your phone, can give you that. And that get people to use it a lot more. And now, not only 学习强国, but Xi Jinping thought generally is required learning for everybody in China. If you go into an education establishment like a kindergarten all the way to graduate school, you have to learn Xi Jinping thought. If you work in the public sector, you have to learn Xi Jinping thought. Now, in the last couple of years, if you work in the private sector, where there is a party branch, you have to learn Xi Jinping thought, because your party cells will monitor that for them. The ideological control is about making people to understand and embrace Marxism as something that is Chinese. It is also something which is to ensure people have, the, in quotation marks, the correct thinking and outlook. So people can learn through Xi Jinping thought to become patriotic Chinese. If you don't learn Xi Jinping thought, you are not patriotic Chinese. And patriotic Chinese is such a good thing to be, that it is effectively an instrument to level up those people in China who are a bit more backward and need a bit more help, like the minorities, who are less immediately, instinctively patriotic to China. And of course, Chineseness here is very Han-centric. I'll come back to this when I talk about the fortune of one people. Let me move on to the fourth dimension of it, and that is the dimension of upgrading the de facto social contract. Again, for those of you who are Chinese history or politics major, you would all have heard about the so-called de facto social contract that was put in place in China shortly after the Tiananmen Beijing massacre of 1989. And by that de facto social contract, it effectively meant that the Communist Party of China promised people in China that their tomorrow will be better than today, that their living conditions will improve. In return for which, they request and requires everybody, Chinese citizens, to embrace and support the monopoly of power by the Communist Party. And by and large, until the last 3 years or so, the Communist Party of China had delivered that. From after 1989 to before COVID, for most people in most parts of China, they saw their living conditions improve. Some very dramatically, some less so, but nearly everybody, I didn't say everybody, but nearly everybody effectively saw that being delivered by their party. So the party kept its promise, and people by and large were happy about it or comfortable enough to embrace it. What Xi Jinping has come in to say is that, but that got the government to focus excessively on growth, because growth was what delivered higher per capita GDP that improved people's living conditions. And that's not good enough. Xi Jinping would deliver something more to you, better, something better for you. That is to improve your spirituality, to make you proud citizens of China, to make you patriotic Chinese who are very proud of what your country has achieved. And that effectively is about China's taking a more assertive approach to global affairs, that China now demands international recognition and acceptance of China being a very good, positive player and a force for good, and simply generally respecting, in quotation marks, the dignity of the Chinese people. So anything that is being seen as and disrespect to China is no longer going to be accepted. Hence, you saw in the last 4 or 5 years the arrival of wolf warrior diplomats. And of course, the concept of wolf warrior diplomacy should be an oxymoron, should be a contradiction in itself. Diplomacy cannot ever be married to wolf warrior behavior. But under Xi Jinping, that's what you need. That's what you will make people in China proud as one single Chinese people. I'll come back again to this in a minute. But with that, you have a significant upgrading of the de facto social contract. The fifth dimension is about developing a socialist market economy. What does that mean? It means active state steerage of the market to deliver maximum synergy between government guardians and market forces for the common good, if at the expense of private or corporate profits. Now, again, it seems like a bit of a contradiction. If you allow market forces to have full play, then you cannot have tighter government guidance. But don't forget, Xi Jinping declares time and again that he is a Marxist. And of course, Marxism is itself based on Hegelian dialectics. Contradiction is something which a good Marxist shouldn't have a problem with. So you shouldn't have a problem with what would come across as an apparent contradiction, not if you have learned to become a good Marxist, as Xi Jinping says that you should. But let's get to the realistic dimensions of what this self-contradictory approach means. It means that China's top economic goal is no longer about economic growth, but it is about economic strength. That is where Chinese economic policy under Xi Jinping has become. It is about building up innovation and competitiveness via an industrial policy. It is about creating a symmetric asymmetric interdependency, meaning that China's economy should not become dependent on others' economy, but other people's economy should become dependent on China's economy. And a focus on economic strength means focusing on technology and innovation. And you have seen some real results being delivered to the Chinese economy. If you go back 15 years, there were a couple of Chinese companies that you would think of as, oh, maybe they are, wow, looking pretty good. But today, you will have easily a good number of Chinese company names that you will roll off your tongue and say, these are globally competitive, world-class companies, some of them with cutting-edge technologies. Some sectors are now getting Europeans and American businesses worried. You go back 20 years, you could hardly think of any Chinese companies worthy of notice. And that's how much China's economy has changed. Xi Jinping thought does deliver some results, but it doesn't deliver the kind of general economic improvement, particularly for the wider general public. What it does do is to focus a lot more on economic security and economic order. So more emphasis is being put on the state-owned sector, even though for the Chinese economy, its private sector is the more vibrant and more profitable side of the economy. Some of those very innovative private companies like Alibaba, Tencent, etc., were the tall poppies that have been cut down. But still, you have others which are up and coming and doing well. And you also have the policy called common prosperity. Now, common prosperity is an amazing policy. It's amazing because it asks the rich people and the business corporations to contribute to philanthropy as directed by the party state for causes that are meant to be beneficial to the less wealthy, less privileged. Socialist, doesn't it? Well, except that you are talking about the world's biggest socialist country run by a communist party with the kind of power that a reinvigorated Leninist party has to offer. And it cannot simply do redistribution. It cannot simply tax the rich and distribute the monies to the poor. It has to do forced philanthropy. What kind of Marxist is Xi Jinping when he is in favor of common prosperity, but not simply socialist redistribution? Just something for you to think about. The sixth dimension is about forging a patriotic Chinese people. Now, Xi Jinping's patriotism is completely party-centric nationalism, with Xi Jinping at its core and with Chineseness largely equated to a Han-centric conceptualization of what being citizens of China actually means. And inherently, it is slightly xenophobic. It doesn't trust foreigners or foreign countries. It creates the concept in China that China is a land of heroes, but then it's a land of heroes with qualifications, because it's a land of heroes when it is firmly under the leadership of the Communist Party, and that China was really pretty much broken before the Communist Party came to power in China. And the Communist Party itself was in trouble before Xi Jinping became leader. And that's why it was necessary to have the anti-corruption drive. But collectively, China and all its Greek citizens becomes a land of heroes when they embrace and follow the leadership of the Communist Party, which itself, in turn, adheres to the leadership and guidance of the supreme leader, Xi Jinping. And therefore, together, China will be able to deliver the greatest thing. And minorities, be they ethnic minorities, religious minorities, or for that matter, political minorities, are all to be elevated to become patriotic Chinese by embracing the correct thinking, the correct outlook, and therefore the capacities to behave in the correct way as patriotic Chinese, who all love the party, the top leader, and his thought. So the seventh and the last dimension that I would like to flag up with you is to build the common destiny for humankind. If you only read about this in English and not in Chinese, then you don't know what I'm talking about. What is this common destiny for humankind that is to be forged? Because the Communist Party of China doesn't use that language. nor does the Western media. In English, they're always translated, deliberately mistranslated, I would say, into a community of shared future. But if you read Chinese, read the original Chinese text, you will not find the word community in the original Chinese text, nor will you find shared future. A community of shared future implicitly means a community of free agents who freely choose to share their future. Nothing wrong with that. Who would not agree to that? But a common destiny for humankind is something that has to be forged. And if it has to be forged, it has to be forged under the leadership of something or somebody. And that something is China through its Communist Party, and that someone is Xi Jinping himself. And Xi has elaborated on this, and they call this the democratization of international relations. And he's put forward 3 global initiatives: the Global Development Initiative, the Global Security Initiative, and the Global Civilization Initiative, as ways to guide the process for the forging of this common destiny for humankind. Now, how does that democratization of international relations work? It means China will pivot, and indeed has pivoted under Xi Jinping, its foreign policy not to the United States, but to the Global South. Why the Global South? Before I get back to that, let's look at the other concept, which is called the democratic West, which I would expect you at Cornell know very well what that means. Because the democratic West, led by the United States, is what is responsible for putting in place, at the end of the Second World War, the liberal international order, or what we today prefer to call the rule-based international order. And Xi Jinping would tell you that the so-called liberal international order is an international order of the West, for the West, and by the West. And the democratic West is numerically a minority, a clear minority in terms of global population and in terms of member states at the United Nations. And for the international order to put the interests of this privileged, rich, elitist, and largely post-imperial group of countries and people at the center and put their interests first just isn't democratic. What a democratic order would be is one that puts the interests of the Global South, which amounts to the overwhelming majority of the world's population and numbers of member states at the United Nations. And the Global South is something which Xi Jinping said that China is a member of forever, implying that China, of course, would be the natural leader of the Global South. So by engaging with the Global South through its Belt and Road Initiative and the 3 global initiatives, he would be able to say to countries in the Global South, including the autocracies, that all they need to do is to work with China, support China's efforts to transform the UN and therefore the liberal international order into something that puts their interests first. And this is where the Global Civilization Initiative is so amazingly effective, because you will probably have no idea what a global civilization initiative could even possibly mean. It means that every country in the world has a right to choose its own political system and way of government, and no other country or groups of countries has the right to tell anyone else how they should run their own affairs. So it is a complete repudiation of the Western idea of the right to protect, responsibilities to protect, or conditionalities in global development assistance. And it is therefore an avocation that reassure autocrats everywhere in the world that autocracies have nothing to fear in a new world order where China enjoys preeminence. And China will enjoy that preeminence when the China dream of national rejuvenation is accomplished. And by domestically forging one country, one people, one ideology, one party, one leader, China will then be able to deliver that China dream in 2049 or 2050 at the absolute latest. At this, I think I reached exactly my 45 minutes, and I will stop here, and I would welcome your questions, comments, or indeed criticisms. Thank you. Thank you.
We start from this room. If you have a question, raise your hand and speak.